Well folks, welcome back to the workshop. How the hell are yous? Today, more tools to fix. Starting off with a Bosch hammer, that's GSH11E. Not as many tools to do now. The actual Christmas rush is just about over, so the actual repair shelves are starting to get a wee bit thinner. Less choice, still plenty more to fix. Start off with this one. Right, obviously it's a lead, but there's something else going on with that motor. Doesn't sound exactly right. It's very rattly, more than likely a bearing. The question is which one. If it's the armature one, you could get away with just changing this, easy fix. But if it's the top needle bearing for the top of the armature, if that's worn, you'll need a complete strip and service. Just gonna see what it's hammering like as well. Nope, more than one problem with this. The chisel just fell out of it. So that's another problem. Not holding the chisel. Right, definite lead problem. Could be a speed control problem because she was going up and down the speed there a wee bit. But there's definitely a rattle inside as well. And the tool holder not holding the chisel. So this one's going to need a wee bit of work. But the hammer's alright in it. So this needle bearing up here, we'll have to see what that's like. If it's totally gone, we'll do a full service on it. If it's okay, we'll see what the rest of the hammer's like, but it is hammering, so might not need a full service. But she is a 2002 machine, so she is 22 years old. Just get rid of the lead for now. Make things a bit easier to work on. The lead's also damaged. And we'll need a new grommet. Now, up top, it's not done that much work. The felt's not even got any grease on it, so it's not done any mad work. That there's just dust. Generally, the grease will weep out through the leak hole at the top, start to saturate this here wee felt sleeve, this packer. It's only there to absorb. It's only there to absorb the grease that does get out. That's dry. I wouldn't say this has done an awful lot of work. There's the problem. That's the noise. Bad bearing. And yeah, no, they're not worn out actually. They look small, but they're not too bad. Still more than half left on that. I'll keep them same brushes. That is an old one. You can tell by the windings, which has not done a mad amount of work. It's been worked, but not crazy. A little bit of wear, but it's not worn through anything, especially for a 22-year-old machine. And that is the original armature. New modern ones aren't made the same way. They don't have a sharpened edge here. Newer machines will also have resin up along here to hold down the windings, make sure they don't break off up here. But this old girl didn't have any. Just shows you it's not always needed. I do want to know so what that there sleeve is like. Yeah, that's the problem. That there is what the actual needle bearing is running against. Needle bearing down in here. She's running on here. You can actually see the track. And that bit of the steel is actually deglazed. So that's a sharp edge that the needle bearing is running across. It's not going to last with that there. So I do need to replace this needle bearing, but I don't want to be replacing the armature. So this part here is actually case hardened. It's hardened and quenched very quickly. So only the outer layer of steel is hardened. So it's done, and then it's ground down to a precision finish then for the bearing. What's happened is the outer layer of hardened steel is actually broken away. These bit of flakes of hardened steel have gone onto the bearing, the needle bearing itself. That'll compromise that, so it'll need to be changed. Don't want to replace the armature because that costs €300. Wouldn't be worth it. I have to see if I can replace this here sleeve on its own. Now, this is the older machine. The newer one was a wee bit different. It had a pressed on sleeve. You can take this off an old one, an old busted machine, and replace it, but I don't know if these are the same. And the only way to actually replace this is with a second-hand part. You can't actually buy this here separately on either machine, so it's either replaced with a used one or nothing. Replace the whole armature as the other option, or just run it the way it is till the machine dies. We'll see if I can fix this. That is the donor machine, the donor armature. You have to get this piece and put it on here. That's not going to work. You can take the oil ring off. But this older one, the sleeve, it's not a sleeve. It's actually machined off the whole armature. So this here is actually one piece. This doesn't come off. In other words, you can't do anything about that without replacing the armature. So we're going to have to make do with what we have. Just do a quick repair instead of a full service, because no matter what I do, this bearing's eventually going to fail, and that's going to do nothing but get worse. So just get it up and running and see if we can quieten it down a wee bit. Anything we can do is change this bearing, because this one is actually bad and totally gone. It's not the repair I wanted. Well, there's not much you can do if you don't have the parts. That'll bearing will keep it running a bit quieter, but this here will eventually degrade more and take out that needle bearing completely. Run it the way it is. It lasts as long as it lasts. Still actually hammering, so we can still use it for the time being. This thing could last 2 months, it could last 5 years. You just don't know. So, what does she sound like? She doesn't sound good, to be quite honest. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds worse than I thought it was going to. Two things, could be this needle bearing at the top, or it could be the needle bearings for the crankshaft. If there's crankshaft needle bearings, could replace it, quiet them down. That sounds very bad, to be quite honest. Probably is this needle bearing. Question is it going to be worth replacing with an armature worn like that? Could also be the needle bearings on the crank. It'll be a wee bit easier to fix them. It'll be more worthwhile to replace them if it was the needle bearings on the crank. Still not sure it's worth changing that needle bearing, but that sounds very bad. See, this is when the repairs become risky. When do you keep going and when do you stop? So far, that's just a lead, wee bit of grease, and a bearing. It's a fairly cheap repair. It's going to keep the thing running for a bit longer, not forever, but it sounds very rough. If you keep going yet, you'll be changing more expensive needle bearings at the top and strapping down the top of the hammer. Do you then service it? Do you leave it? Do you put a full service kit into it? When do you stop? You could easily rack up €100 bill on this here. At the end of the day, that armature is still not going to be very good. It's not going to last forever. Keep going, or do you stop? For curiosity's sake, I want to see if it's the needle bearing on the crank. And if it is, we'll replace that. Take it off neatly and gently so no dust gets into the hammer pipe. And I also have to take the handle off again. The top's not even down correctly. That bolt's come loosely. And it's only the one. New grease I put on. Right. Right, what do we do? Ah, the hell with it. Gonna change that bearing. It's better to do something than to do nothing. Those bearings are okay. They'll be alright. It's this needle bearing is more than likely the problem. I'm going to take a shortcut and I'm not going to wash this thing out. I'm just going to replace the bearing and maybe the two O-rings, and that'll do. Really don't want to spend any more money than I need to on this machine. Needle bearings up on here, and there's a wee felt sleeve behind it just here. It holds on the grease. It has to push out this way, but there's nothing to grab, and there's very little of a lip on this side to actually press on. Generally you try to break through the bearing race on the inside to get to the ledge of the bearing, the very edge of it. That's the felt sleeve gone. Just want to get rid of one of them needles. I do not want the needles on the race falling down onto the gearbox itself here, onto this grease. I'll keep this as clean as possible. Get it good and hot. And use that ledge you just freed up to knock that out. That's your needle bearing. It's worn, but not too badly. Hopefully this new needle bearing will quieten this down. Hopefully this will quieten it down. Again, try not to get the dirt onto the gearbox. clean that bore out. We're also going to change that felt sleeve to keep any dirt out of there. Keep that clean. Keep around here clean. We will need a wee bit more grease in this as well. The bit I put on was nowhere near enough. One new seal, one new bearing. Same thing as taking it out. Heater up the housing to get it in. That's her. You can tap the sleeve on, but you need to press on the bearing. If you press it on the sleeve, you can't actually tell when it's fully home, and you can crush it too much. If you crush it too much, the felt squeezes out and clamps too much onto the shaft of the armature, causes extra resistance when it's running. So just use the wee tappy method for putting on the sleeve, press on the bearing. Hopefully that should quieten this yoke down. Now, one other thing I will just change. This here lever is what actually engages your switch if you slide it across. So slider goes across here, pushes this lever down, turns your switch on. See that wee ridge there? That's where the bearing, that is where the bearing from your slide switch runs across. Now that wears down too much, it doesn't get enough travel to actually switch on your machine. So when you have this head off, it's worthwhile just replacing it, especially if it's worn like that. So it should be nice and flat. Because you have to take this whole head off to replace this. Sounds smoother at least. They may not be needed, might as well change them now when we have access. Actually, you can see a flat edge on them, so they actually do need to be changed. An awful lot messier doing this if you're not cleaning the machine out. Cleaning it out requires more time, more work, more money and grease. And if you're not sure if it's even worth doing, you don't want to be spending that. Must be an awful lot of extra cost and an awful lot of extra time for no real extra gain. Now, hopefully this hasn't been a complete waste of time. Hopefully that'll quieten it down quite a bit with a new bearing. Still a chance it's going to be noisy because of the actual armature shaft that has a wee bit of wear on it. The noise could well have been coming from that. Not going to know until I switch it on. It's jobs like these here that actually become high risk. You initially get it fixed up, working the way it's meant to be going, but you can hear there's another problem. Do you keep going deeper to fix that problem, or do you keep it at a cheap repair? At the end of the day, this is a 21-year-old machine. You might not want to spend an awful lot of money on it. That extra bearing I've put on costs an extra €30 and then another £5 for the wee green oil seal. The price keeps mounting the more work you do, plus your time you're putting into it. You have to work out when it's worth it and when it's not. This one took a chance to see if it's going to be worth it. We'll soon find out. Nice one. That's a lot better. That's a lot smoother. That new needle bearing made a massive bit of difference. Could very easily have went the other way and made the exact same sound again and made it no better at all. Just made it would have been charging the customer more money for the same repair. Luckily this time that bearing sorted it out. The armature still isn't good. It still has that bit of wear on the side of the armature, so that needle bearing's not going to last anywhere near as long as it should. But it'll still run for a few more years extra now for this man. At not too much of a repair cost. Find out now if it's at least kicking right. And I forgot about that. It's actually just jammed. All dirt and grease built up inside. You're fouling this mechanism. Whenever this has been pushed down, that's her locked in. Whenever you push this sleeve down, pushes this down, it pushes this whole thing down and gives these wee paws room to move to let the chisel out. But this one, whenever she's pushed down, she's staying down and it's just not actually coming back up again. So this is just staying in the open position all the time. Quick clean should sort this. More time, more washing. This thing's like the never-ending repair. It took an age to clean that thing out. Grease was jammed in tight. Whole bits of dirt and grit, fouling everything up. Actually had to use a wire brush and sandpaper to get most of that off. These wee balls are what actually lock your chisel into one position. And if you push down this here bottom sleeve, it allows these here to move up so that you can rotate your chisel in the holder. So they need a wee bit of grease to keep them moving smooth. And it's just a matter of rebuilding. They hook in there. That's her. Ready to test. Well, thank God for that. I'm glad to see the back of that one. On Bosch GSH11E, fixed up again. New bearing, needle bearings, grease, O-rings, sleeve, grommet, brushes, tool holder fixed up, cleaned out. In other words, more work than I was hoping on putting into it. But she's done now, and she's running. Next up, hopefully something a little less troublesome. A Makita sander. This is the BO4900, the second heaviest sander that Makita do. Actually, I have one of these things myself. Quite nice sanders, to be honest. Good mixture between actual size and power. Switch it on first. Right, don't know what this one was sent on for. I'll be honest, I'll change the cable on it anyway, because that is a very heavy and stiff cable. A torture to work with that thing. Nah, there's something wrong with that brush. It's not sitting right. Normally, these things, as the paper clamps, give trouble. Normally these wee plastic levers, and to be honest, they're not the strongest. They don't withstand an awful lot of abuse. These ones are fine. And as well, sometimes the base can wear away if you're putting the sandpaper on and people fold it over before clamping it on. The actual abrasive sandpaper can wear into the aluminium base and wear it away, so the paper doesn't actually clamp anymore because the actual base is gone. So if you're putting this on, make sure you don't fold the paper. The clamp and base on this looks okay, so I'm guessing this is a starting problem. I think this is the problem here. See the way that's sitting at an angle? And see the ridge here? What's happening? That brush isn't sitting on correctly. So it's worn away down here, but it hasn't worn up the top. So the brush is now pushing against the motor, but it's not actually making contact with the whole armature. So that, I think, just needs to be changed. That one's even worse. That one there's the culprit. You can see where it's burnt on the face of the brush, and this one here is not. So this one's making full contact, transferring the power. This one's not. It's not contacting the actual comm bar and the armature. So the power is actually arcing across instead of flowing through. This can't move down anymore because of the shoulder here. She's actually worn through the comm bar, and she's probably touching the insulation washer at the top now. So this has left a gap. So the power is arcing across, but the gap's now too big. It can no longer jump. You take it and rattle it about, just like when a normal set of brushes wear out. Give it a bang, pull the trigger, it'll sometimes run for a little while. That probably allowed this here brush to move on just enough to make contact again for it to run. But you can see from that black that is actually arcing, so that's not making proper contact. So that's probably stopping the machine. Coming on here in the back of a van, transported on, it's been thrown about, rattled around. That brush has just made contact again for a little while. That's why it's running. But if you send it back like this, it's only going to run for about 5 or 10 minutes and it'll stop again. Set of brushes it needs, and that'll cure the problem. Let's just clean this out. Actual brush holders down the bottom, they're not burnt or melted or anything, they just simply weren't sitting on correctly. Very easy to replace them. Brushes just pull out, you slide the new ones on, they just clip into place on the holder. And these brushes for this sander, CV419, fairly common set of brushes. Very cheap, I think they only cost like €10, and they're easy to get. That's it. Push on the spade connectors again and reinstall them right this time. They have a wee rubber boot as well, so that has to actually click in to either side of the brush holder. There's a wee slot for the wee rubber boot, so unless that wasn't clicked in right, the rubber boots are sitting inside of this little square. There's a wee cutout there for them. If they're not sitting onto that, sitting over to one side, it means the brush can actually rock over back or forth. Sitting too far back, they rock up this way and the brush will go in at an angle. So as long as they're sitting on flush, shouldn't be a problem. And that should be it. Actually, the handle's pressed down along all the way around, just not lapped over. See which is missing there. Actually a crack on it. But that's only a wee surface crack. It'll be alright. That should be her. Let's see if she runs better now. That's her. That'll do the job. 2019 machine, which is not old. Nice one. I'll keep this boy running. Shouldn't keep stopping now. That should keep this boy running. I should keep running now. Oh, that lead's terrible. It's like something you get in a healthy there. Good quality, but unyielding. Very, very stiff. Anyway, that's her. Now, next up, we have a little Makita impactor. This is the brushless model, DTD153. Let's see, 2020. Working fine. Problem is, we have a bit jammed inside the holder. So they snapped off the actual end of the bit. I can't get this piece out. Common problem, not that big a deal. What's going on here? I think somebody's already had this apart. Must have fitted it the wrong way around. It's meant to pull up to take it out, not push in. So that has to be fixed anyway. Sometimes to get these out, all you need is a punch. if it's not tight, if it's only just nipped off and it's only the end on it, get somebody to hold on the actual sleeve or hold it out. Put a punch against the actual spindle itself. And then give it a little tap. Try to see if the actual inertia will help pull the butt out. You're hitting the spindle, impact goes back, and the butt might try to stay where it is and start working its way out. That's not moving. It's moving a wee bit, but not much. They sometimes can twist on the holder as well, or maybe they've put on the wrong one completely. Doesn't have the wee dimple on it, it's just an actual end bit. Sometimes they can jam on solid, so they're completely stuck. If tapping it won't take it out. Sometimes an air compressor as well, you just blow air directly down on top of the butt, can sometimes blow the butt out. That's only if it's lightly put on. That doesn't work, you're dismantling. This one's been awkward. Sharpen the tips, see if we can get on any more. There we go. Don't stick it under my finger now. Don't lose the little ball. See if that'll tap out now. Still not enough. Now, if you can get it to that sort of stage where it's just sticking out a little bit, you might be able to get a pair of pliers onto it. But when it's this loose, it's just going to push them back in again. Plus, you're just not going to get the grip to pull that out. What you can do, get a grinder and grind off 2 flat edges or 2 wee recesses into the butt, so that you can get your jaws of a pair of side cutters, or these wee multipliers, into it. Then you can pull it out. So you got your wee edge. There we go. One broken impact butt. That's probably off a magnetic holder. Sheared off totally. Easier when they're a wee bit longer, you can just use a grinder from the start. When they're that short, it's very irritating. And sometimes they can break off, and here as well. so they're even deeper inside. Can be a torture to get out. Drilling down the centre of them and putting on sort of a stud extractor to pull it out. Very hard to drill this stuff. Easier if that hole went the whole way through. It's very hard to actually drill this. It's very hard steel. You need time and patience to grind it down. Whenever it's sitting on a slope like this, you're never going to get it centered. So pulling it out is the only option. Need to rebuild. Get a little bit of grease. That hole for the bearing. The way this sleeve goes on, this wee chamfer doesn't face up, it faces down. And the spring doesn't go on first, it goes on after this. So that goes on first, then your spring. He actually has another part missing. There's a wee washer that needs to go onto this as well. See if I can get one here. That's a wee washer. Goes on the top of it. Pressed all down, and then you have to press the spring and the washer down whilst pushing on this clip. That's it. One Makita butt holder. Taking and locking the butt again. And more importantly, letting it out. That's it. One Makita impactor. Taking and locking the butt again, and more importantly, letting it out. That's the DTD153. That goes for all the Makita impactors. They're all built the same way. That is how you get the broken butt out of a Makita impactor. They're sticking out far enough, you can just grind or grab them, pull it straight out. If they're broken and deep, you're going to have to dismantle this tool holder to get in. Technically, didn't have to dismantle that tool holder. If I had to just give it a knock, it could have cut it. But the customer had actually put this together wrong, so I had to take it apart anyway. But that's her. That's it up and running. Next up, Makita router. Most of this is in from the same boy. He's got a few Makita machines in. But this one's burnt out. Hear that click? It's a blown segment on the armature. Looks like somebody knows already because the brush holder's been opened and broken. That's not good. Switch this on, it should be just sparking. She hasn't blown the segment out completely. She hasn't blown the segment out completely, but I think it has raised up because you can hear it clicking as it's going around. Lovely. Broken pin. No earth pin on the plug. There's only a plastic pin on this plug anyway, it's not a metal pin. It's not difficult to break them off. These are actually a class 2 machine, so they're double insulated. There's no earth lead, but you still need the earth pin to fit the plug over here. These 13 amp plugs in Ireland and the UK. They're one of the safest in the world with this here setup. And the actual sockets over here where this plugs into, on the live and neutral terminals, there's actually a door. So these are actually always covered, so a child or nobody can stick their fingers into the hole and get a shock. So you can't actually put the plug in until you open the door. And the little door is opened and operated by the earth pin. The earth pin is actually a little bit longer. So as it goes on first, it actually pushes down a wee door and allows the two live and neutral pins in to slide on. So without the earth pin, a wee bit harder to plug into the socket. You just have to be health and safety conscious and, you know, jam a screwdriver on as well. Nice wee light show. That's gone. See how much one of these armatures is going to cost. She's a 2020 machine, so she's not even done much work. Right, that's getting pricey. There's about 200 to 230 euro to replace the armature and brushes on that machine. I'll have to ring the customer on that one, see if he wants to fix it. Before I ring him, I might as well look at the other one. Now the sander belonged to this man as well. Two of these Makita Routers. So that's turning smooth at least. And the plug isn't broken either. Not a good start. And then not running the second time. That one had a very bad flash, but it looked to only be coming from one side. And now it doesn't run at all. That one's also broke, that cap. And that one's also broke. Lovely. Nah, nothing left to get into that. These caps are broken anyway. They have to be replaced. Quick and dirty way to get into them. Just drill them. Get one hole either side. You don't need to drill through it. You just need to be able to put the drill bit into it. Two drill bits. And you have the leverage to turn them. Yeah, that might just be a set of brushes. Looks worse than what it is. Hopefully. There we go. So that one was making contact. See the colour of this one? That wasn't. So instead of making contact, this was actually just arcing. So that's where all the flashing was coming from. A set of brushes might just cure this. Just make sure there's nothing blocking the holder. one set of 203 brushes. That's the size that they should be. And also I'm going to need some caps. 2 new caps. Go in reverse first, turn it the wrong way till you hear it click. That's it onto the right thread now. So you go to screw them on, you can cross thread them or you can go in at an angle and start binding up. You go reverse first, it helps them go in properly. Hopefully that's all this thing needs. I can still smell the other one. Bloody stinks. There's a slight spark out of that, but that could just be the brushes bedding in. So the armature now will have the same shape as the old brush, which will be a wee bit rounded. So the armature will also be a wee bit rounded. So whenever the new brush goes on, which is nice and flat, I'd like to leave a gap in the middle. So it will arc across that until the brushes wear in and close the gap. Or the armature's on its way out and it's going to fail. But you can't go and replace the armature when the thing actually works. It might be on its way out, but it's still running. The price for a set of brushes, you wouldn't be replacing the motor. So you just leave it running like that there. If it burns out, it burns out. There's nothing you can do about it. You then need a new motor, but you'll still get the time until it does. Or it's actually just a gap in the brushes and it's going to stop sparking anyway. Either way, it's only a set of brushes being charged for. It's not expensive. The thing could last 3 months. It could last 3 years. So that should keep them happy. It'll keep them running for a while longer. Everything else is not alright. What's going on here? Well, that's not right. So we somehow unscrewed the locking bolt from the base. That's not a big deal. Just the nuts come off. Just try not to let that spring out of there. Put that in there. That's it. Get that back together and give the customer a ring so I can get it out of the workshop. So I can ring the customer on the burnt out one, see if he wants it fixed, so I can get it the hell out of the workshop. There's meant to be a plastic lock nut on top of these, but normally people break them or lose them and they come on like this. That's her. Running and plunging. Now to see what the customer wants to do with the other one. Right, and on this one, Customer says to leave it. Too expensive. Doesn't want to fix it even if it has a 2020. He also says just leave it as is and he'll use it for spare parts. So that one's not to be fixed. This is just turning into a Makita day today. It's an insta-fix. Customer's just left it in and he has a problem. Running, no problem. But the spring's gone. Plus, he wants a new blade on it. So can't be using it like that. Very dangerous. There's a spring holding this guard onto the frame up here. And that's what takes the guard back again. Out the spring, the guard's just flapping. You're going to have to hold it here to actually cut. And it's leaving your blade exposed. So I'll get the spring changed and get it back to the customer nice and quick here. Rid of the blade. Circle pliers then to take off this here C-clip or circlip. And the guard can just lift out. Don't know what he's cutting. That is some build up. It's not sawdust. It's not plasterboard. I don't know what that is. Insulation maybe? It's not cement. No, maybe it is plasterboard. Get some of it out anyway. Give us a wee blow down with the compressor. That's it a wee bit cleaner. It's dirty up in here. Jeez. That's going to be dirty on here. Look at the state of that. That's not the blade guard. That's completely packed out. Yeah, I've never seen one like this before. That is on there. Must be cutting drywall with it. And they must be doing it outside in the rain. Still not through it. Look at that. No wonder he needs a new blade. Now that he broke the spring. One new spring. If you're needing one of these here, the Makita number for it is 231878-2. Only costs like €2 or €3. And a new blade, we'll go with an ox because they're a decent blade and they're a good price. And as well, cordless saws like this Makita, a lot of people don't realise you actually need a cordless saw blade. You just can't get anything with the outside diameter and the right bore size. These Makitas are 165s with a 20mm bore. They also need to be the right thickness. You can get the same blades, but they're thicker, and they'll be a corded saw. Then the actual thickness of the blade itself needs to be 1mm, as in this thickness here, the steel part. Some other blades will be 2mm or 2.3. So the actual disc part of the blade, this part here, is 1mm thick. Then the teeth themselves then will actually be 2mm thick. Cordless saw blades take a thinner cut. Very, very skinny blade, and they take a very little material. Thinner the cut, the less power from the saw needed to actually cut the timber. Only downside of that there is they're not as rigid. They're a wee bit more flexible. Thicker blades will go on, but you shouldn't use them. You're just going to end up burning out the machine. Plus teeth. The more teeth that's on it gives you a finer the cut. Finer the cut, more power needed from the motor. So if you're just ripping, get a coarser blade. Easier on the motor and faster cutting. It's just about rougher. If you're doing finer work, you're going for a finer blade. Slower cutting gives you a better finish, but you are taking more power out of the motor again. So get the blade you need for the work you're doing. Now for the spring, dead easy to fit. Just hooks on. And hooks on under here. Pull it round so it clears the stop and drop it on. And it should be sprung all the way up to the stop. There shouldn't be a gap. It shouldn't be slack here. It needs to be tight all the way up to the stop. These Makita springs do come in different sizes for different machines. If you fit the wrong one, it mightn't be spring enough for the actual guard. But that's the right number for the saw, 231878-2. Type that in if you're ever needing it, and it'll take you up plenty of places online that can sell it. Just hold it on again with your circlip. That's her. As well, these Makita saws, one of the things I do like about them, they think about the people using it. That's the back flange for holding the blade. Which is actually the same shape of the shaft here, the two flat edges. So that goes on like this. And your blade fits on here. The 20mm lip around here for actually holding the blade. It holds that perfectly. But not all blades 165 in diameter are a 20mm bore. Sometimes you get them with a 30mm bore. So Makita have thought of that. Flip it over the other side and she's 30mm. You don't have to just stick to a 20mm. You can do either. So this here is the exact same internal diameter. It'll fit on exact same way that way. There's only a couple of blades that are actually a 30mm bore on a 165 diameter blade. But you do get them. Very oddball, but you can get them. And you also get a 16mm bore as well. But most of the time, a decent blade will actually come with a wee adapter. So that there is a 20mm to a 16mm bore adapter. So if this was actually a 16mm bore on a different brand of saw, you can slide that inside the blade. So it'll take the blade down from a 20mm to a 16 instead. We don't need that. We just need this. That's her. One wee insta fix. New spring and a new blade. That's her. The old one might send that away for sharpening. You can get them sharpened up, but it just depends. You can buy a decent one for less than €16. Might not be worth sharpening. And break this up a wee bit. Taking a different brand at least. Bosch grinder. This was on before, look. That's my number. Exactly 1,000 machines ago. I'm at 215 now. I think it might be brushes. Might be. No, not gone, but could be stuck. Yeah. See the stuff coming out of there. They're jammed up anyway. I'm going to need cleaned out. Nope, they are gone. Springs popped. You can usually tell anyway. So this is a simple fix. Just give them holders a wee file. Get rid of any dirt or debris that might be sticking to them. Actually see how much comes off. It'll stick into the side of it. One set of Bosch brushes. I've probably said it in other videos. I do like these little grinders. Those are the 7115. They're not the most expensive. They're not the most powerful. But they're a decent wee machine for the money. They're nice and comfortable to hold. They do the work. And they seem to last. So we get these on all the time for repair. That's the main thing you ever need to change them. Brushes. They're not the biggest of brushes. They're fairly small, but they're nice and fat. So you get plenty of power transferred into the motor, so they can do a good bit of work. Plus, when they do wear out and you need to get them changed, it's a good opportunity to actually check the rest of the machine to make sure everything else is still running smooth. So you can actually hear that there's turning nice and smoothly. The bearings are still good in it. It's actually a local engineering company that does steel manufacturing, and they buy only these grinders. So they've got a bunch of these things of us, and the only thing they ever get now since is every once in a while they put on an order for sets of brushes. And I don't mean 2 or 3 sets of brushes or 10 or 20. They'll buy the brushes in the hundreds. And after that they would buy bearings as well. 20 or 30 bearings at a time. So bearings and brushes is the main thing that goes in them. Apart from that, these things are little workhorses. They're not the most powerful, not by any means. People who use them, I have one myself actually. They're a nice comfortable grinder to hold. They're a nice slim body, very easy to hold, and they're not too heavy. They're a decent quality wee machine for the money. That's one easy fix. And now when we're on the Bosch, as well stick to them for a wee bit. Do another one. The Bosch grinder GSH11E. This is a newer version compared to the last one. Used to be a 660, now they're a 750. Smaller machine, cheaper price, not as good. This one sounds like the same thing. Yeah. Gone. That wee pin there. It's a wee piece of plastic on a spring built into the brush. Once the brush wears down so far, that piece of plastic breaks loose, pops out, pushes the brush away from the armature, stopping the machine. That's to stop you running through the whole brush all the way down to the lead. If you do that, you'll just end up burning out the machine. And don't be tempted to pull that little spring out and keep on going. It will work, but you will burn the machine out if you leave it on too long. Most modern machines will have this little spring built into the brushes now. They're a great wee feature. Pull them out. Just check the armature on that one. Make sure the bearings are okay. Yeah, we'll just change them as well. That one's not as bad, but that one's bad. So we need to change this. And we want to check this one. That also needs a good clean. That's all iron oxide. Rust. Builds up too much. Builds up onto the fan, packs it out. And it all starts rubbing on the air deflector. These start to melt. The two melt together. Whenever you stop the machine then, the plastic hardens. The motor jams solid. So we'll clean that out. Get rid of that bearing. That one's not too bad. But we'll change it anyway, seeing as we already have this out. Yes, center, would you? There we go. I keep getting asked about these here bearing pullers. These are brand 6. And that's the actual part number of them. Don't know if you can still get them or not. I think you can still get them, but I have no link for them. They're not the cheapest thing in the world to buy. These here are the proper set. But they're hard enough to find that there brand. Depends where you are in the world as well. But you can actually buy cheaper sets as well. Exact same setup. They're called mini pullers, 3-leg mini pullers. Might stick up a link at the bottom to another brand that you can get. Plus they're a better price. Give this all a clean out now. And get the bearings in her. Right, that's it clean. One other problem, broken lead. You can see the lead tipped up, it's never good. So I'll replace that lead as well. If there's any damage to the lead or the plug, I always replace it. Right, that grommet's going to be no good. So one I fit is a H07, this is H05. It's a little bit thinner. The one I'll be fitting is a bit thicker, so we also need to replace the grommet. And this also has a moulded plug fitted to it, so I can't reuse this. Need a new plug as well. The grommet is that number there, if you ever need it. You're far better off fitting a heavier cable. Lasts a lot longer, plus it's H07 stuff, much nicer to work with. Now, bearings next, 1607 and 1608. That's that. Your rubber sleeve for the bottom. Before you put anything else on, there's a little washer that goes on top. That's on first. Then your air deflector. Then your 608 bearing. Pushes on by hand. Your rubber sleeve over the top of that to center it. And this air deflector. And this larger washer. Gear and nut. And just tighten that up as good and tight as you can get it. That's her ready to go. I'll stick it on here first actually, because this is actually sighted. This top square has to go into this hole. Put that on here first, just makes installation a wee bit easier. I'll just put a bit of grease in there too. I mean a little. You really don't need much. If you were full of grinder head with grease, you're just going to cause trouble. You'll know straight away when you switch it on. You hear a popping sound coming from inside of here. That's the grease cavitating inside. And that popping is going to be wearing away your gears. So don't be overfilling it. Brushes again. That's your number there if you're looking for them. It's only a cheaper grinder, so these are cheaper brushes. These things only cost like €6. I think that is us. Good to go. That's her. One Bosch grinder, GSH11E with new bearings, lead, grommet, brushes, a little dab of grease in the gearbox, and a good clean down. That's her. It's not a lot of stuff, and it's nothing too expensive because it isn't all that expensive a grinder. It gets questionable whether it's worth it doing any more than that. So that repair there cost about €48. A new grinder, new one of these here exact model grinders, it's going to cost you around about €80. They might have went up a little bit since, but I'm pretty sure they're about €80. You're just over the halfway price of a new machine, but you're still getting a working machine back. You buy a new one, you're going to be paying nearly twice the price. This saves you half. The parts is actually changed, it's all just serviceable parts or wearable parts. They're going to wear out anyway. If you're buying these quite regularly or using them quite a lot, you're going to end up spending twice as much on new machines. All these parts are wearable parts anyway. They're going to wear out and need to be replaced. So you can either replace them and save money or buy a new machine every time. You're going to save a lot more money in the long run getting machines fixed than it is buying a new machine every time. Fair enough, you might get more of a warranty out of the new one, but you don't get a warranty on wearable parts. Brushes, leads, bearings, they're consumable, so they don't cover them type of things for a warranty. So even if you buy a new machine and you need to do the same thing to that in such a short time, they're still not going to be covered by a warranty. They're wearable items, they're going to wear away, they don't cover them. You're going to get the same money repairing it anyway. Getting it fixed up saves you money in the long run, and if you're going through several of them, several machines, getting brushes and leads all the time, you save a lot of money compared to actually buying a new one every time. Now, this is one that's been in this workshop for donks. And I mean donks. I mean this has been here for months. Bosch orbital sander GSH11E AC. I had this on, must have been before Halloween. Still sitting here. Parts only just arrived on. Not unusual for parts to be delayed. Sometimes they're just not in stock. The manufacturer just doesn't have them. You have to wait for them to come on. It does happen. Sometimes it's an expensive part, sometimes it's a cheap part. This was only for a very cheap part. Friction ring. That's the part number if you ever need it. This is just a little seal for underneath the machine, between the machine and the Velcro base. This just seals it up and allows the machine to have a proper seal here, so the actual dust can be picked up and sucked out of the machine. Very simple part, very simple to fit. Was not simple to get. I've been waiting for that for so long. I've actually had to ring up about it several times. I think I've actually reordered it about 3 times as well, so I'm going to probably end up with a bunch of them now coming on. But without it, dust extraction doesn't work as well. The problem with this one was it was burning. Hopefully this doesn't also need a base. I think I'll get away with just this here friction ring. It actually burnt onto here. The old one had come loose and broken and actually wrapped up and around and jammed up the base. Done a wee bit of damage, but I have filed and sanded that down again to make it at least smooth. All that's doing is just sitting there. See, it's just hooked onto the machine here. And that just leaves a seal, so the air's not been sucked on through here. It's only been sucked up through the holes. So the actual holes take the sawdust away and out through the machine, into the bag or onto a hoover, whatever you're using. An unbelievably basic, cheap and simple part, but just took so long to get. It's not something you want. Customers waiting on a machine and you just can't get it fixed. Could have just sent it out without this, just removed the part and done without. But that's also not exactly fixing it. That's just doing a bodge. That just presses onto that lip and seats into these wee notches here. And the base then goes over the top. So that is actually just sitting just against the base, only just touching it. Whenever that's running, it's actually sucking all the dust out of here and not through here. But this customer will be glad to get this one back. That's her. Ready to go. Simple as that. Sweet things like that there that can clutter up the workshop. Not a lot of room to work in here, but when you have to store the machines in for months on end, waiting on a wee part like that there, you can quickly run out of space. Next up, wee Milwaukee grinder, cordless. This thing looks to have done a fair bit of work, but it's questionable if this is going to be worth fixing. It's very stiff. Bearing's obviously gone. She's only a 2021, mind you, but still, she's definitely getting used. Will it be worth fixing? First thing, does it even attempt to start? If it doesn't even attempt to start, there's no point in even trying to fix it. She's making an attempt. There we go. She's still good. As long as the motor runs, or at least tries to start, you're good to go. Bearings collapsed in the bottom, she's flapping all over the place. The armature is rubbing off the stator, binding up, making it very hard to turn. Left like that for too long, it'll just burn the motor out. This one, he's got it on just in time, I would imagine. Normally, you get the man burnt out because the person who owns it has just kept on going. Bearing's gone bad, it's making a bad noise, hardly working at all, but they keep on going till it dies. Dies is in, burns out the controller, burns out a contact or a switch or something, or just actually melts the motor. This one, hopefully it's alright. And of course, full of cement. There's your bearing. Surprised that was rubbing so much actually. Bearing's not completely gone. Normally it actually does fall apart, so the racing balls come out completely. There's the race. So he's dropped it on as soon as it happened basically. But also that field may need to be packed out as well. Rubbing down here. There are tight tolerance on these. And the rotor is actually spinning very close to the stator. So if that there moves at all, they do make contact. So we might just put a wee packer up this side to push the stator down here, so it's clearing this here rub. If this isn't actually rubbing, you don't need to open the rest of it. You can just go ahead and swap the bearing out. This boy's actually cut the body with a grinder, put an X in it to mark it as his own, but he's also stuck it together. And whenever you do this here, if you're not opening it up, make sure you do have all the pieces. If the bearing's just gone bad, and the actual cage is still inside, and your bearing seals haven't come out, you can just go ahead and replace the bearing. But if it's open like this here, your cage is falling out, and the actual bearing seals out, they will have gone somewhere. You need to open up the machine and look. And if the actual races come apart and the balls are out, you definitely need to open up the machine. Open it up and get it all cleaned out, because then we steel balls will be in here somewhere. You have to get them out. See if we can get this off nice and handy. Now, problem with this is getting the bearing off. Get a set of pullers and clamp it. Even there too. Bolts are too long for it. That's not going to work. Bring up my pullers. They're not sharp enough. Get a good sharp edge to get underneath that bearing. That's not going to work. We'll try the vise, the pry bars instead. Hold it in the vise, get a pair of sharp pry bars, and see if you can actually prise it up by grabbing the bearing and having the jaws of the pry bars on the vise itself. If that doesn't work, just break the bearing and actually cut off the inner race like I normally do. But we'll try this first. Don't know why I'm bothering to cushion it. The thing's badly marked from rubbing anyway. There we go. One bearing off. That's a lot easier than cutting it. Before doing anything else, just give us a quick clean, blow it out with a compressor. So that's what we want. That there is what we're after. 1605 bearing. tiny little bearing for these grinders. Could really have fitted a bigger one, to be honest. Try to get a good quality one if you can. NSK or a FAG or something. This here's a 605 made in Japan. That's what you want. Japanese ones are some of the best. Go for a rubber one if you can. They're not as good for the speed, but they're better for the longevity. The rubber seals up better because these things get very dusty inside. The dust can destroy the bearings. The rubber ones are sealed better for dust. The metal ones are freer and able to run faster. I know it's a grinder. A metal one would be better for the speed, but the dust kills these things, so fit a rubber one for it to last longer. Just press this on now. Now, that's it on. As you can see, I didn't actually press that on the full way. It's just shy of the end of the shaft. That's because on the housing, you can see where the bearing's actually sitting. It's only sitting halfway, but you can sit all the way back. So if you only fit it so far on, leave the shaft shy, she's actually sitting on a fresh piece of plastic. When these here fail, they can generate a lot of heat, and the heat can melt the plastic housing. So that'll actually leave the armature in the wrong location and can cause it to rub more on the stator. Pressing it on just a little bit less means the bearing's actually sitting more on a fresh piece of plastic back here. So it's actually more likely to center the bearing better. And if it is badly melted, you can actually get a hot piece of metal, heat it up red hot, put a couple of wee pock marks across the plastic, and that'll pack it out a wee bit. So whenever you clamp the two halves together, then it'll center the bearing again and hold it tight. But not pressing it on fully allows it to center it first. Now, that's the bearing on. Next thing we need to do is sort out this. So there's where she's rubbing. So this has moved up too far this way. So we want to push it down this way to clear that rub. Only thing you need is a piece of paper. That's just normal paper. I just fold it over 3 times. Just have it the right size so it fits in just there. This isn't a problem you should really have to do. See in this housing, see these 4 wee marks down here. On the original version of this and the older brushed versions, there was little silicone rubber boots put under there to hold the stator in place and to keep it tight, to dampen it in case it moves around too much. Milwaukee thought them wee quarter penny parts were too expensive for you, so they've actually taken them out. So these grinders now come exact same mold, same housing that was before, because you know new generations come out all the time. New generations nothing, they've just taken something out. Same machine as the last one, same mold, same body, they've just taken out these little rubber boots. So now instead of this being held in place by little rubber boots, dampers basically, and pushing it on tight, this here can actually start to move around. And instead of it moving around on flexible rubber, it's moving around on the plastic, which of course wears away the plastic, allowing the stator to move even more. So now that's moved down and it's now rubbing. To stop it, we're putting in the paper, but it wouldn't have the problem to begin with if Milwaukee would just fit the little rubber boots that were meant to be in there from the beginning. And just cut your paper when you're fitting this just shy of the size of this here stator metal itself. You don't want to go up onto the red plastic bit. Set that in there. Try to get it nice and square. And get your handle on. And then drop this on at an angle so it picks up that paper. You can use plastic as well, but there's that little needed. You need to pack this out so little that most bits of plastic are going to be too thick. You don't want to put anything metal in there either. It's either going to be paper or plastic. Paper, you can get it to the exact size by folding it. Plastic's going to be too thick. That should be it. That should be her. Start these screws first. And push it on the rest of the way. And we should be good to go. Sounds a lot better. It's not rubbing. That's her. 2021 Milwaukee grinder. That's the M18CAG115XPDB brushless 18 volt Milwaukee grinder. What a long name. Anyway folks, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're enjoying the videos. Thanks for watching this one. Hope you've learned something. I hope there's a few bits in it to help people out at home as well if they want to fix a few bits themselves. Give us a wee like and a follow and a subscribe if you're enjoying the videos. Cheers.